Welcome to Wind Down Wednesday. Here are your hosts, Jeffrey Tobias Halter and Amanda Hammett.
Well, good afternoon. Today we are talking with Catarina Rivera about National Disability Employment Awareness Month. I'm Jeffrey Tobias Halter, and today I'm enjoying a very nice French Sauvignon Blanc. And Amanda, what is your beverage of choice today?
Well, today I am hydrating. I've got my big water bottle, just taking it all in and taking care of my system here. But I am very excited to introduce Catarina Rivera and welcome her back to Wind Down Wednesday. Catarina, before we get started, what are you drinking today?
I am going to have my green tea and get relaxed.
Wonderful. Well, let me give everybody in the audience an introduction to Catarina. She is a disability public speaker and DEI consultant. You might have caught her in some previous episodes. We've had her on twice before, once in July and once, I believe, in April. But she works with companies to improve disability awareness, inclusion, and accessibility. She's been featured in NASDAQ, Authority Magazine, and she was one of the top 21 DEI influencers of 2021. Some of her past clients include names like HarperCollins Publisher, LinkedIn, Whole30, Grant Thornton, and BCG Digital Ventures. Catarina is the founder of Blindish Latina. It's a platform smashing disability stigmas through storytelling. Catarina is hard of hearing and blind. She has a BA from Duke University, as well as a Master's of Education from Bank Street College of Education and an MPH from Hunter College. Catarina is a certified professional in accessibility core competencies. So Catarina, I am so glad that Jeff and I have another opportunity to talk to you. In earlier episodes, we explored disability awareness, and since October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, we're honored to have you back. Can you give our audience some insights on why National Disability Employment Awareness Month is so important?
Thanks again for having me. This month is so important because it shines a light on disability employment. Unfortunately, disabled people have higher unemployment rates than the general population, and this is for various reasons. Ableism, discrimination and hiring processes, structural barriers such as income limits for public benefits, that if you need to retain your medical benefits, you cannot earn over a certain amount, and having lack of access to support in education or higher education. So I think that having this month where employers are really tasked with focusing on disability awareness and employment in particular is really important because we want disabled people to thrive. Our economy benefits when disabled people are able to be in the workforce and be supported and contributing.
So this month, what are organizations doing to help employees thrive? What does best in class look like?
The best in class organizations, the ones that we want to emulate, are making disabled people feel seen and heard. They're talking about disability. They are really intentional about creating a more accessible and inclusive workplace. Some things that they might be doing are offering closed captions on every live event, on every video that lives anywhere internally or externally, including transcripts for videos. They could be doing accessibility plans for any event or initiative that is happening. So for example, if they're doing a team building day, you're going to want to have an accessibility plan as well for that day to make sure that you're not creating activities that will exclude people. The other thing that I think the best companies are doing are truly listening to their employees and prioritizing flexibility into their work culture, including ways for meetings to be structured, including remote work, and just making sure that they're really centering their decision-making on what employees are voicing. When we look at this month, we have to talk a little bit about accommodations because many people think of the ADA and accommodations when it comes to disability in the workplace. The best companies make the accommodations process simple and clear for all parties and easy to understand. I really want to push companies to consider providing accommodations without disability disclosure when appropriate. So let me give a little more insight into what I'm thinking here. If it is, let's just say that you are doing some type of assessment and you can provide extra time to candidates in the hiring process. Extra time. It doesn't cost you any money, and you allow candidates to check off if they need extra time. They don't have to tell you why they need it. They don't have to provide a note as to why they need it, but you're providing a support and they can self-select if they would like that support. I think that's the ideal scenario where anything that you as an employer can provide, whether that's to someone in the hiring process or in your workforce, that you can have that available and anybody can benefit, whether they need it temporarily or whether it just benefits them all the time. I would love to get to that point so that it really is an inclusive culture and it's not about an accommodations plan for this employee for this one thing. And I really think that there should be more intentional design there of the employee culture. Another great thing that employers can do to help employees thrive is create clear boundaries for work time. This is so important for mental health. Promote that healthy work-life balance. Don't have people, senior leaders, sending emails after hours. Make sure it's modeled from the top and really support true mental health days. I think that sometimes when we talk about, okay, take time if you need it, employees aren't really sure if that's actually supported. So finding ways to show that you truly mean that and making your employees feel comfortable, it can go a long way. It would be great as well to see how you can support your managers to develop empathy and be able to respond to whatever is happening with their teams in an empathetic way. They think this is a skill and not enough people have enough support at the moment to develop this empathy that is needed for today's workforce. Those are some things that companies can do.
That's wonderful advice for all of us. And I hope that some of the leaders listening will take that into their minds. What advice do you have for organizational improvement?
For organizational improvement, it's so important to commit to a long-term improvement process. Improvement is not a one-time training. Change takes time and energy, and it has different phases. So I think understanding what change even means is an important foundational starting point. Create an appropriate budget and don't put all the work on one person. One person cannot magically change culture. That person needs support. That person needs buy-in, maybe a team, maybe external support, and a budget is really important because I think that just like if you don't measure it, you don't value it. If you don't invest in it, you don't value it. Use existing audit tools and assessments that relate to your goals. There are tools out there for disability inclusion in the workplace from different perspectives. Those can be very helpful to give you a sense of where you are and what are some common best practices that you're not yet aware of. Connect with other companies to learn from each other, especially if they're an industry leader in disability inclusion. They can share the best practices. Hire external consultants and support. Someone like myself can come in and support you in that process. When you are thinking about what to prioritize, where to start, or what is most important for your company, it's really necessary to focus on the employee feedback and what the current status of your company is. Employee surveys can be helpful, employee focus groups as well, so that you can have some deeper data in addition to quantitative. Because what I see is with quantitative data is you then have to apply a lens of interpretation onto it. And whatever bias you have is going to impact your interpretation of the results. So, and this comes from my NPH background, I recommend a mix of quantitative and qualitative approaches to make sure that you're not setting a whole strategy based on an interpretation that might not be accurate. It's also important to build transparency with your staff. So when you do conduct any kind of data collection question efforts, you want to go back to your staff to share transparently what were the findings and what are your action steps? What are you going to do in response? When we talk about change and we think about, okay, how do we know that change has occurred? We know that we need to impact every aspect of the employee experience. And one very important aspect is their manager. So if you haven't created change at the manager level, it hasn't happened yet for your employees. This is when 360 reviews or management feedback loops they become very important and salient to the work. Employees often share what needs to be improved, but they aren't listened to. And that is frequently what has already happened. You probably have already heard what needs to be changed. And so what it is a mindset shift that needs to happen, that executive leaders need to be guided by the employees and listen to them. So those are some important things to consider when we're looking at organizational improvement.
Well, this has been great. And tying it back to, as we wrap up, back in April, we talked about ableism. What advice do you have for managers to be more aware and avoid ableism? Something maybe that you haven't had a chance to talk about yet.
Yeah, when it comes to ableism and things that managers can do, I would definitely recommend managers preparing key talking points or key responses for situations that you're uncertain now about how to handle, because then you can prepare ahead of time and you're going to have a better response if you're anticipating that. These could be situations like disability disclosure of an employee performance issue that you're not sure if you're going to have a conversation about disability related to that performance issue, or how to support a disabled employee. So get prepped for those types of conversations. Also, ask more questions before making assumptions about your employees. Be curious. I think that's a foundational best practice for approaching employees. And build trust with them. Start to identify ways that you can be in solidarity with disabled employees. Challenge yourself to come up with at least one or two things that you can do to help your employees. And that's something that you can be in conversation with them about, but that will truly help them to feel supported. If they know that anytime a calendar invite comes in and there's no agenda, and you know that agendas really benefit them, that you're going to be saying, hey, I noticed there's no agenda. Could you please send one? So the burden is not always on them to self-advocate. And that will really go a long way. Please avoid offering advice on people's disabilities or telling them you're sorry or asking invasive questions. Remember, those are ableist responses, and that's not something that you want to approach your employees with. And finally, just ask employees how they like to be identified if you're unsure of how to refer to them. These are some ways that you can be a more supportive manager for disabled employees.
Wow. I want to encourage everybody listening in the audience that if you are listening today and you have not listened to Catarina's other 2 episodes, I encourage you to go back. She has given so many tactical, practical things that companies at the large organization level down to the frontline leader level, things that people and organizations can do to make our workplaces more inclusive. So I highly encourage you to go back and listen to all of them. I also want to highly encourage you to visit Catarina's website and download her free ebook on accessibility. And again, her website is CatarinaRivera.com. You'll find more about Catarina and her work there on her website. But if you're like me, you can also go to Instagram and follow her at Blindish Latina. She has some phenomenal content that she puts out consistently with tips that all of us really need to be aware of. So, Catarina, thank you again for joining us for the 3rd time. And thank you so much for sharing with our audience.
Thank you, Amanda.
I'm Jeffrey Tobias Halter. Thank you for joining us this week for Wind Down Wednesday.
Thank you for joining us for Wind Down Wednesday. If you like this episode, please subscribe to receive more episodes straight to your inbox.